Welcome. Today we're using 2 jelly roll strips to make this beautiful quilt. This is part 2, my friends. We are making this block. We are making strips into blocks, and I love this block. I hope you do as well. We're using 2 different jelly rolls with bright colors. So grab your tea, grab your soda, let's sit down and enjoy how to make this charming block. So 1 solid strip to a colored strip. We've sewn 4 strips of 2 with the fabric 2.5-inch length that we came from the jelly roll. And now we are going to take a look at them and see what colors we want to put together. I'm thinking I am going to move these around here. We'll have the pink and the purple together. Now let's see if that works. So once we press it open, it's going to look like that. I love it. That looks good. Let's see if this one looks good. And we have the white and the black. You know what? I'm good with that too. Hit the comments if you're not. Let me know what you would have done. But we're going to go ahead and sew these together. So right now I am going to put these 2 together. Then we'll take them over to the ironing board and press them, because I want all my seams going the same direction. So we're going to sew these together, and we'll move these over and do them in just a moment. So I want to get right sides together. Make sure your fabric is not folding over on itself. We're just going to sew those together. So we are making a quilt out of pre-cut 2.5-inch strips that was taken from 2 separate jelly rolls from 2 separate companies. Use what you have or buy what you like together. For fabric, check out Michaels. Since Joanne has gone out of business, check out Michaels. And you can also go to Hobby Lobby, or better yet, your local quilt store. At your local quilt store, you're pretty much guaranteed to have the best quality fabric. And I also love going to my local quilt store because the ladies there, and gentlemen sometimes, they are incredibly helpful and like to it's nice to bounce ideas off of them. What do you think of these two colors together? What would you put with this? Just to get an idea. Now, my friends, you do you. They want you to buy what you want to buy. But if you want some second opinion, or you don't have an idea, they are immersed with the fabric on a daily basis and can definitely give that guidance. And if you are new to sewing, I do always recommend needle down. And that way the needle is going to hold your fabric in place. So if you have to maneuver around, it's not going to change where you're sewing or skip a stitch or anything else. So needle down is always a good practice. Okay, so we have our two strips sewn to our two strips. How beautiful is that? Let's take that over to the iron and press those seams, and we'll be right back. We're going to go ahead and open this up. We're going to press our seams all to one direction. I have, and I did not double check the water, so make sure you always double check the water. Sounds like I need to put some in. But we're pressing on the hot cycle on cotton. And what is the cotton cycle? Well, we have recently looked that up, and it's actually 320 degrees. So my friends, you ask why we should be very, very careful about turning off our iron. We should be very, very careful about not letting inexperienced individuals use an iron. Well, that's because 320 degrees can definitely cause some severe burning, some severe scarring. So we want to always be leery and cautious and have our wits about us when we are pressing or ironing. Okay. And this is just looking absolutely yummy. So I am loving these colors together, and we're going to see momentarily how they look together, because we're going to take these 4 rows and chop them all up to make blocks to go with our log cabin blocks. So I am hoping my measurements are all correct and we can get these blocks all sewn together, chopped up, and matched with our log cabin blocks. What do you think about that? I am loving that. We are back at the cutting board, and we have our first of 2 strips that we've done so far. And the big test comes now. We're going to use our rotor and our rotary blade and our ruler to measure these out. And these are 8 and just over 8.5 inches. 8 3/4 inches. Looks like a solid 8 3/4 inches. So let's make sure they are the entire way. And we are going to take these, line them up on lines so we get them straight all the way across. Hold your ruler, cut off your selvage. We're going to throw that into the scrap bin because I am hoping we can make some crafts with that. And then I'm going to bring this down 8 3/4. 8 3/4. And we can make a line, or we can just start trimming that off. We'll bring our ruler back and cut us off at the 8 3/4. And this is probably good where I get my square ruler out for the next one. So if you have a square ruler, let's go ahead and switch over to a square ruler, because we want to cut each of these blocks to a perfect square of 8 3/4. And if your rotary blades aren't sharp, hit that subscribe button, go into Where Wendy Creates, and find my rotary blade sharpener tutorial. And I think you are going to be very impressed at getting yourself that nice, useful tool and sharpening all of your blades. Now this makes me want to think we didn't trim them right. So make sure you're on 8 3/4 on this direction, 8 3/4 on this direction, and you're lined up with the bottom. And clearly this one is off for me. So I'm going to do a little bit of extra trimming. To make this one perfect. So again, if you have to, it's important to have your 8 3/4 by 8 3/4 and just trim off your little extra. And as you can see, my friends, it was not much. And now we've cut our blocks in half. I'm going to take a corner of our block and turn it down, corner of our block and turn it up and match it to this corner. Corner of our block down, match it here. A corner of our block down, match it here. Let me see if I can pull all of that into view. I know the pink kind of disappears with our cutting board. Hopefully you can see that, my friends. Now we are going to take it over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew this together, and then we'll come back and we'll sew this together. Then we come back, press it, open it up, and we'll sew the center seam. And we have our triangle. I'm going to match these seams up a little bit better. And I'm going to start at the point because I want to make sure all of my seams are continuing to go in the correct direction. I'm going to start in about a 1/2 inch on the block because we're working with a bias now. I'm going to go back off of the triangle, and then I'm going to go forward, back onto the triangle. And we're going to make sure our seams are lined up as we go. And we have half of our square. Bold and beautiful. Look at that. Almost obnoxious. What do you think? Hit that comment button. Let me know your thoughts. And we'll lay this one back out. And we have this one. This is the side we're going to sew on. We're taking this over to the sewing machine. Just like we did the other one, we're going to make sure we're perfectly lined up. You can use our fingernails usually to drag it down to make sure we are. And now I'm going to start just like I did on the other one, about a 1/2 inch down on my point, because I want to make sure I don't go against the bias and torque it. And we're going to sew. Make sure we're all lined up. And now we're going to go backwards and then forwards. And we're sewing on the side with our seams to make sure they stay in place. My finger underneath. All right, now let's go ahead and press these, and we'll be right back to sew them together. And we're on our hot setting. We still didn't put water in it, so I'll be doing that momentarily. And we're going to press our seams. We have our 2 pieces pressed, and now I'm going to put them over and we're going to do the same, making sure we don't pull these and get them distorted. And we have matched up our 2 blocks. Going to put them in here. Again, we're going to start a 1/2 inch down, and then I'm going to go back all the way off and come forward, and it ate it anyway. All right, trying that one again. Making sure our seams on both sides are going the correct direction. And that we're all lined up nicely. So we've sewn our sides together. Now we're going to ever so carefully press our piece. And we'll press it on the top side as well. And now over to the cutting table to cut this down to our 10.5 inch length to match up with our other strips. And we're going to lay our ruler on it to where it matches 10.5. Our line is straight down the center, and our 10.5 mark at the top, and trim. And now we have a beautiful 10.5 inch strip block made out of 8 different 2.5 inch strips, cut down to 8 3/4 blocks, cut cross length in half, switched around, and put back together. Easy peasy. And we're going to take the rest of our first 2 strips and cut them in half lengthwise, so corner to corner. Close your rotary blade in between. And we have the pieces. Then I'm going to take these and stack them over on top of each other. And we'll cut up our next blocks. And just continue this, my friend, if you want a... the final blocks are going to be trimmed down to 10.5 inches, which you know with your 1/4 inch seams are going to be a 10 by 10. So are you going to mix and match with other blocks, or are you going to use only these blocks? That is the question to help you determine how many of these that you need to make. So we know our quilt measurements for our crib, twin, queen, and king are standard sizes. Now I usually have my couch throws approximately a crib size, but I do like more foot room, so I'll make them longer than the crib size, and I'll give you those measurements again momentarily. If you don't have them written down somewhere in your sewing room, make sure your blocks are stretched out. This one doesn't look like it is. We've got our lines lined up corner to corner, blade open, and let me get you those measurements. And then we're going to take these blocks, flip them around, sew them together, have some fun. All right, and here's our quilt sizes. Twin is 63 inches by 87 inches, but you know that's a couple inches on either side is okay. And then we have our double. Our queen is what I usually make, which is approximately 84 by 92 inches. Now these are just standard sizes. You can increase or decrease however you want to put it. Again, with the crib size, I do like having it more like a 40 by 70 or 50 by 70 for my couch throws because I like them to cover my legs. But you do you. These are just standard sizes. You make it any size you want it to be. You can easily make a block work quilt using any strip quilts that you want to have a jelly roll strip quilt. You don't have to use all of the same blocks. So it is fun to mix and match however you choose to do it. But I do like laying them out on the table, and then we will pick them up 2 at a time and sew them and put them back down and do the process. This time I'm not starting at the point. I've turned it to where I have my seams going up so I can start right at the end. Okay. Typically, this is the part where you go over to the ironing board and you press these out, and then we'll rejoin them together. But you do see how we have the 4 pieces. We turn them over, and we're going to make sure our center, this is where, if you use pens, my friends, put a pen right in that center seam. And then we have to start on the point. So here we're going to go in a 1/4 inch and then go a 1/4 inch down and then go backwards. Be real careful it doesn't eat it. Okay, and our seams are all going up, so we got to be really careful because we're not staring at our seams, because at this point we have half the seams up, half the seams down. Want to make sure these 2 lay properly here. Try to keep your accurate 1/4 inch seam. I know for me it's a struggle. Some people get this and they're perfect. And others like me, it's always going to be a little bit of a struggle. A lot more of these blocks. So I'm very excited about these colors. They really pop. They're exciting. And I want a bright, crazy quilt. So this is going to be perfect for me. And let's go ahead and sew some strips together so we can make some more blocks. And we'll take them all over to the iron at the same time. And I do have a hook on the side of my table for my scissors. Look into my channel. Please hit subscribe. I've got a lot of tips and tricks on there, such as using those command strips to put hooks on the side of your sewing table to keep yourself organized. It's so bold and gorgeous. Really, really love this. These 2 gorgeous colors. I love that so much. We used that in the middle of our log cabin, if you remember. Now we have the white polka dot and the purple going together, and I want to ask you, hit that comment button. And I've decided to put the pinks and the purples together with the flowers. So we have these strips going together. So half of this is simple, easy peasy sewing. And the other half takes a little bit more thought and manipulation to make the triangles blocks. And the first one is always the hardest after that. This is fun. This is fun. And these blocks are 8 3/4. don't think I can use that one. Salvage. Shepherd. And now we have all of our strips cut. We are going to lay them down and cut them catty corner, making sure the fabric is always the same direction as we cut them. And we're just corner to corner on these. And these are 8 3/4 by 8 3/4. If yours are 8 1/2 by 8 1/2 because of your seam lines, that's okay. You can use that 8 1/2 measurement. It will still get you a 10 1/2 inch block. You won't have to trim as much off. And yes, if you don't have a square ruler, you can use a long ruler. Just make sure that that ruler is at least a 12 1/2 length, and that way it fits corner to corner. And you always want to cut the same direction. If I were to turn it around and cut this way, my sides would be off, meaning my blocks would be row to row instead of row to solid, meaning these pieces to these pieces when I sew them back together. It gets complicated, but I'll show you when I'm putting them together. And we have trimmed out our 10 1/2 inch blocks by using our ruler and putting it on 11 inch and then turning our blocks around to do the other side and lining them up on the 10 1/2 inch mark, just right here. I have 2 of them underneath so it looks wrong, and then trimming those off so we have a perfect 10 1/2 inch by 10 1/2 inch block. So those are beautiful and ready to be connected to the rest of the pieces for our quilt. We have our block pieces here, and we're going to take 2, and again they were together like so, and we just switch them around like this, and then we're going to match 2 other blocks into them. Changing the colors up, we're going to take 2 from the top and 2 from the bottom to match them together off of the stack that I've cut. So these blocks, we're just going to take one, flip it around, put the other one to the top, and then bring in these blocks and fill in the gaps. And now we're going to sew that one together like we have been. Line up our blocks. Start about a 1/2 inch down on the piece. Back stitch, cover it. Go with the seam, grab our next 2 blocks, line them up, and continue to do this for the remainder of the stack. And then again, we take 2 from the top, 2 from the bottom, and we will match these together. And then we sew them together. Can you see that okay? Here. And then we will sew them together. going to lift our foot, pull it down about a 1/2 inch, and begin. And the squares just keep getting prettier and prettier as I go along. What do you think of all the purple in this one? And we have our pile. We're ready to either iron these or put these together. So let's see how they fit. And we're just going to match these up and go as we go. I am really loving these. It seems like the purple is dominating at least this part of the stack. And now we just have to sew these half blocks together, and then we're going to mix and match them with our log cabins that we've already done and these that we've already done, and start putting together our quilt. I am so excited. I hope you're enjoying this session today with me on making and using pre-cuts 2.5 inch jelly rolls to create beautiful dynamic blocks. I hope you love these colors. And again, my friends, hit that comment button. If you don't, that is okay. Let me know. And we can do some more muted or more earthy tones. Let me know what colors you're thinking, and we will go ahead and put them in the agenda. But for right now, let's sew this stack to this stack. And then on the bottom, make sure all your seams are still lined up. Go in the right direction. Our diamond. Hold our middle seams together. All of our seams are going the correct direction. Come on. And see, these two are perfect. I don't know what I did with those other two. That's interesting. Match your middle seams to make sure they're crossed, they're met in the middle, and their seam is laying the opposite direction. Oh, had to check my bobbin thread. Had a scare. And these two don't match. These do match. Okay, butterflies and butterflies. Those are perfect. Silly me. You know, I'm thinking those other two belong together. And I just put them in the wrong pile. Match up your center seam. That's the most important. So get that center seam, even though it didn't want to match. Don't know what we've done on cutting there, but we can fix it. If you don't have that center seam lined up, your blocks are going to be askewed like the first one that I showed you. And something's wrong here. Here to here, here to here. One of these are upside down or something. So did they match with these? No, they do not. Do these two match with these two? Okay, these two go together. So let's get these two sewn up. Perfect. Had these in the wrong stack. Not that it matters. Okay, these last two to sew together, and then we're going to go to the ironing board and then the cutting table. Make sure they're all trimmed to 10.5 inches by 10.5 inches. Seams go up. Okay, I am so excited here. We are getting so close to being able to lay out this quilt and see what it really looks like. So let's run on over to the ironing board. All right, and I do like to press on the back side first. Give it just a little tug, not much. We don't want to mess that up. And then we are going to turn it over and press on the other side. Just want to make sure everything is going to lay down right. Okay, I am excited. We're going to go ahead and press all these up and then run on over to the cutting board and trim them down to our 10.5 inches. Join them together. I am feeling really great. I really love how these blocks have come together. They are just a crazy pop of color. What do you think? Hit that comment button. I'm calling them a crazy pop of color. What would you call these blocks? Don't be mean, but be serious. If y'all want me to do a muted color, earth tone color, black and white, what quilt would you like to see me have me do. Can't guarantee it if I don't have the fabrics, but hey, I can try. All right, and I'm gonna press up the rest and I'll see you at the cutting table. Okay, and we've just trimmed off these two sides, and we're gonna come up here and line it up with our 10.5 inches. And at our 10.5 inch line on both sides, so we're 10.5, we're 10.5, we want this line to pretty much line up. 10.5, 10.5, and we can trim off these two sides. Okay, so let me move this block out of the way and show you how we start, because I have a way of not pushing the button on record. So here we go, and this block is 11.5 by 11.5. We're cutting it down to a 10.5 by 10.5. We're gonna line this up and we're gonna put it at 11. So kind of line it up at 11, and we're gonna trim these two sides off. And see how crooked she is. We're gonna flip her around, and now we want exactly 10.5 and 10.5. We didn't flip her around right, I think. So where's my center line? There we go. And 10.5 and 10.5. Line up our center line. And our block is trimmed down to 10.5. And we're going to do the rest of the stack just as so. And whether you're using a carpet or a bed, go ahead and lay out all your quilt block pieces that you have made to see how they're going to look next to one another. And then we can flip them around or see what we want to do next. And we've laid out our blocks. What do you think, my friends? I hope you have enjoyed today's video, where we're using 2.5 pre-cuts to make this beautiful block. And I would love it if you hit subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and stay tuned for part 3, where we are putting all these together in a quilt. Question: are you ready for this? Are we going to make a third block out of 2.5 inch strips to put this together? Or are we going to finish it like this one? What do you think, my friends? Let me know in the comments. You've got maybe 2 days, and then we go on with part 3. I'm so excited.